Now it's interesting to me that Joel and Peter speak of the sun becoming dark as a sign, because that sign indeed happened on the day Yeshua was crucified. In Matthew 27:45, we read, "From noon until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the land was covered with darkness." Now, was this darkness at Yeshua's death what Joel was speaking about? Perhaps. But whatever happened there at Yeshua's execution seemed to be only a local event. What Joel is prophesying seems to be affecting the whole world. Nonetheless, Peter is clear that he views everything that's happened as the beginning of the end. And in fact, in some of Peter's and Paul's epistles, we find them trying to prepare folks for the end, which they obviously think is going to happen in their lifetimes. So that partly explains their sense of urgency in taking the gospel message out at great personal cost. But now Peter moves into a stage of his speech in which he wants to connect that final line of that Joel passage he spoke about with Yeshua. That is, where we hear the prophet Joel say, "And then whoever calls on the name of Adonai will be saved," is referring to Jesus as the name to be called upon. But this connection has its problems. I've often told you that the contents of the New Testament consists, half or a bit more, of Old Testament quotes. And it is best, as we encounter each of these Old Testament quotes in the New Testament, to go back to our Old Testaments and read them there. Often there are subtle differences. Now, sometimes the differences are more substantial, because the New Testament speaker apparently is either paraphrasing or perhaps molding that Old Testament quote to better fit what he's trying to get across to his listeners. Now here in Acts 2, as we read Joel's prophecy, it's given to us in Greek, which is the language of the New Testament. However, what Peter was quoting was written centuries earlier in Hebrew. So when we see the phrase, stay with me, when we see that phrase, that last phrase that Peter quoted from Joel, "Whoever calls on the name of Adonai will be saved," in Greek, the word is kurios. That's what's being used to translate Adonai. Whoever calls on the name of kurios will be saved. And kurios means Lord. And this is what we find in almost all of our Bibles. In Christianity, it's a given that all mentions of the word Lord, especially in the New Testament, are referring to Jesus Christ. Here's the difficulty with that. When we look at Joel in the original Hebrew Bible, which is what Peter is quoting from, of course, we find this: "Whoever calls on the name of Yud He Vav He will be saved." So the Greek New Testament substitutes the term Lord, kurios, instead of using God's formal name as it was in the original Hebrew of the prophet Joel. As those who've studied with us since Genesis know, the Torah says God's formal name is Yud He Vav He. Some say Yahweh. I say Yehovah. So Peter says, quoting Joel, "Whoever calls on the name of Yehovah will be saved." Essentially, Peter is making the leap that to acknowledge the name of Yeshua as Messiah is the requirement to be able to call on the name of Jehovah to be saved. Yeshua is the sole agent of salvation, but Jehovah is the sole source of salvation. And this is something that believers, Jew and Gentile, need to understand. There is a terrible doctrine that has existed since the early Roman Church, which implies a replacement of Jehovah the Father with Yeshua the Son. They can speak of the Trinity as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but the Father is often seen as outdated, irrelevant now. Yeshua was given power and authority from his Father Jehovah, but Yeshua didn't replace his Father. In fact, when he ascended, we're told he went where? To sit at his Father's right hand. Yeshua is the way to the Father. He said so. Not the replacement of his Father. And Peter and Paul and other disciples had their work cut out for them to try and find a way to first comprehend this challenging reality and then to explain it. First to the Jewish people, then later to uninitiated Gentiles. And make no mistake, fellow believers, without the Holy Spirit indwelling in us, I see no way that a human can comprehend this mysterious understanding. It's impossible. Never take it for granted that you understand. Because what I just explained to you is unintelligible to non-believers. It takes faith in Messiah to arrive at this point. Truly a leap of faith. And few seem to be able to make that leap. So count yourself as immensely blessed that you can and you did.